Okay, here we are. Get your suit on and I'll get the towels and we'll get some goodies at the canteen. Alice knew that Blanche was right, and she tried to stop her lips from quivering and being a total wet blanket. So she wiped her eyes and made her mouth stretch into a thin, tight smile. Blanche put her arm around her as they walked. Good girl. Let's get some junk food. They put their towels down on the dry sand, opened the tins of pop, and dug into the greasy fries. Blanche liked hers with vinegar, but Alice had loaded up with lots of ketchup. A big bag of barbecue chips was saved for later. They sat in the sun, squinting at the line of navy blue water against a nearly cloudless blue sky. Blanche got a pair of sunglasses out of her bag, and Alice tilted the Tilly hat over her eyes, and they lay back to catch the afternoon sun. There was enough of a breeze to keep the horseflies away and allowed them to get sunburnt without realizing it. It was a perfect August day, and for now, Alice wasn't preoccupied with the sale of the house. After about an hour, they sat up. The tide was nearly dead low. Want to walk the beach? Sure, sounds like a plan. Blanche felt relieved that Alice seemed to be, if not happy, at least relaxed. They walked the flat sands, ankle deep in the freezing cold salt water. Blanche found a sand dollar. Gulls ran along the beach, then took wing and floated overhead. The sky was clear, dotted with only a few marshmallow clouds and a deep lavender blue. They had reached the end of the beach, marked by large flat rocks. Blanche checked her phone. There was a text from Josie. Clam chowder tonight. I suppose we should be getting back. Your mother will be rabid if she's got dinner on and we're not there. They strolled leisurely back to their towels and picked up their litter and the bag of chips. Let's get a couple more pop for the road. Alice smiled. Sounds good to me. Her spirits were lifted. New River had worked its magic. On the drive back home, Alice was quiet but thoughtful. At last she asked, What did you mean when you said Grandy was looking for me? How do you know? Well, I don't know how to describe it. But it's a feeling, a knowing, that he's around and he's near you. I'm not sure I can put it any other way. It's just a feeling. How come I don't feel him? Alice was plaintive. I'm not sure. Maybe because you aren't open to it. Maybe because Grandy doesn't want to scare you. Maybe it's because you're so sad. You know he wouldn't want you to be sad. But I miss him. Of course you do, and it's okay to be sad too. We all miss him. Delia doesn't. She does in her own way. Alice snorted derisively. Yeah, in her own way, which is all about Delia way. Blanche thought a moment before answering. Delia's a teenager. She's moody, I know, but there's a lot going on around that time. There's pimples and boys and hormones. You're going to be a teenager soon too, you know, like in a couple of days. Alice burst out laughing. Moody, is that what you call it? Mean Queen D? Oh God, if I'm ever like Delia, do us all a favor and just shoot me. Lock me up in the basement and throw away the key. Blanche laughed with her. Yeah, I know, Delia's a bit hard to take by times. But trust me, it's a hard age. So when you get there, I'll remind you of this little chap. Well, I'm never going to be like her. And we'll all be so very grateful for that, agreed Blanche. They pulled into the Gallagher house laneway as Percy was coming out the back door. You're all just in time for the show. From inside came the sounds of Delia and her mother having a full-on battle. Alice gave Blanche a meaningful look. Remember? Just shoot me. What are they on about? Asked Blanche. Clam chowder. Delia hates clam chowder, and she hates the smell of clam chowder, and clam chowder has just ruined everything for all time, answered Percy, and continued walking down the drive. Where are you going? Called Alice. For fish and chips. I think the chowder's going to be curdled. Once more, Alice gave Blanche the look, opened the back door, and said over her shoulder, Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. They met Delia as she flew past them and out the door screaming, I hate clam chowder, and I hate you. I guess she's going for fish and chips too, remarked Blanche dryly. Josie was sitting at the kitchen table, red-eyed. She's just so awful. I hope you two like clam chowder, 'cause there's going to be lots. I can't find your father, and now Percy and Delia aren't having any. Oh dear, I don't know what to do sometimes. I really don't. Well, I, for one, absolutely love clam chowder. Don't you, Alice? Love it. Gonna eat at least 2 bowlfuls, maybe 3. Alice felt a wave of compassion for her mother and went over and hugged her. Over her shoulder, she mouthed at Blanche, "Just shoot me." "There's just too much to do. I can't do it all. Your father's no help, and no one seems to understand." Josie sniffled and blotted her eyes with a tissue. Blanche came around and hugged her sister from the other side. "Group hug. Don't worry, sis. We'll get her done. It's all going to be okay." Josie sighed. "I wish Dad was here." "Me too," said Blanche. "Me 3," said Alice. "Let's get some of that chowder. I hope you got rolls from the bakery." Alice's mother gave a weepy smile. "Thanks, you guys. It means a lot." Alice went and started ladling the steaming chowder into 3 bowls. While doing so, she heard someone faintly say, "I'm proud of you." It sounded like they were right behind her, but when she turned to answer, both her mother and Blanche were busy setting the table. Puzzled, she brought the bowls over and they sat down to eat. They were nearly finished and starting to clean up when her father appeared. "Is it safe to come in yet?" "You coward," said Josie. "I wish for once you'd back me up with her." "Well, then she'd be mad at me too. And you weather the storm better. I wouldn't stand a chance." "No, you probably wouldn't. All I can say is that I hope this stage passes quickly. Alice, if your teen years are like Delia's..." "Just shoot me," said Alice. They were still joking around when Delia came in with Percy, all smiles as if nothing had happened, and then disappeared upstairs. Percy sat down with the rest of them. "Don't even bother asking," said Percy. "I have no idea. She breezed into the restaurant, sat down with me, started chatting about how she was looking forward to getting back to the city, ordered a hamburger and chips, and that brings you all up to date as the world turns with Delia." Then he looked at Alice. "If you..." "Just shoot me," said Alice, and they all laughed. Just then Blanche's phone rang. She looked at it and then quickly left the kitchen. Alice could hear the muffled conversation. Something about taking possession and the office at 10. Blanche stuck her head in the kitchen door and called out, "Josie, can you come here for a minute?" Josie disappeared into the dining room. Alice strained to hear what they were saying, but all she could catch were bits of sentences. Nothing that made sense. Most of it was whispers and giggles. Josie and Blanche seldom giggled. At least not together. Perhaps the strain of packing and Delia's hysterics had finally got to them. There was the sound of a chair being dragged and the study door closing. Then Alice heard the front door being opened and closed. She was about to go see what they were doing when Josie came back into the kitchen. "What's going on? What was the phone call about?" Alice asked. Josie was nonchalant. "Oh, just some stuff that Blanche has to look after before we leave." "Well, it's getting late and I think I'm going to hightail it to bed. Don't forget there's a few more things to do tomorrow before the auction, so better be rested and get your stuff packed early." When Blanche entered the kitchen from the back door, she met Alice's puzzled expression with a brief smile and also made a speedy exit upstairs. Her father was reading the paper and Percy was scrolling through Facebook. They both seemed oblivious to Blanche and Josie's conspiratorial actions. Alice decided that she might as well head to bed as well. She climbed the back stairs to her bedroom, kicking boxes out of the way as she did so, and then lay on the cot looking out at the night sky. Her birthday was the day after tomorrow, but no one had mentioned it. They wouldn't forget, would they? The day dawned with Josie knocking on everyone's door to "Look sharp, time's a-wastin', and make sure you have everything." Alice could hear her father in the bathroom gargling. Delia was screaming something about it being too early. The aroma of toast wafted from downstairs, so Percy must be up. He was surprisingly punctual. Alice wasn't sure where he got that from. Always an early riser and irritatingly cheerful. His easygoing and laconic manner was a welcome relief from Delia's theatrics. Alice looked over at her suitcase, which was open, surrounded by a jumble of clothes and keepsakes from the house. She lay there for a few minutes, then with a sigh, got up and picked out something to wear from the various piles scattered around the floor and stuffed the rest of them into the suitcase. Her haphazard packing made it impossible to close when she tried to jam the case shut. She pawed through the rumpled garments in an attempt to rearrange them, and as she did, she found the little envelope tucked in the side pocket. She took it out and examined it again. It was a skeleton key. Small, maybe only an inch long. The top, where the chain of the fob was attached, was scrolled with tiny detail. It was really pretty. She thought it might make a neat pendant. She put it back in the envelope and stuck it back in the suitcase's side pocket. She'd show it to Blanche later. She found the Tilly hat under the dresser, put it on, and figured she was pretty much set. There was the ring of the back doorbell. Alice ran down the little back stairs to answer it. She opened the door to a young couple with 2 little girls. "Hi," said Alice. "Hello," answered the young mother. "We're the Harrisons. We know you must be terribly busy, but I spoke with your mother the other day, and she said we could come over before the auction to see if there might be some things we'd like to buy." Alice felt a twist in her stomach. From behind her, her mother spoke up. "Oh, hello! Won't you please come in? No trouble at all. We've been expecting you. Alice, why don't you show the little girls around while the Harrisons and I can have a look at the furniture?" Alice was not wearing her happy face. Her mother gave her the look and mouthed, "Be nice," as she escorted the new owners through the kitchen. Alice appraised the soon-to-be living in her bedroom intruders. They looked nice enough. Both had their hair braided back from their faces and were dressed in matching blue gingham dresses, with white ankle socks and black shoes with straps. She figured one was probably 6, the other maybe 8 or 9. Alice could tell they were almost as uncomfortable as she was. There was a long, awkward silence until Alice made the first gesture. "I'm Alice." The youngest had her fingers in her mouth and mumbled something. "She's Becky, and I'm Janie." Janie was blushing beet red, and Alice felt a bit sorry for her, and her initial territorial anger lost some of its edge. Alice motioned around her at the piles of boxes against the walls and filling the downstairs rooms. "This is where the staff used to live, the people who did the cooking and cleaning and stuff. These are the back stairs they used. My bedroom's up this way." Janie, with Becky in tow, dutifully followed Alice, trailing wordlessly behind her as she showed them the bedrooms. As they were about to start back down, Janie hesitated. In a hushed tone, she asked, "Are there ghosts?" "Huh?" said Alice. "Everyone at school said this house is haunted." Alice turned and looked at Janie. Well, how perfect was this? They were scared of moving in. Right here, right now, she could ruin it for them. Terrify them so they'd never sleep another night. She considered her response, but as she was about to tell them about the old woman who climbed the stairs to scratch at the door, or the little girl with no head who walked through the halls, there was that familiar scent of pipe tobacco, and she heard someone say, "Be kind." Alice looked around, startled, but there were only the 3 of them. "No, of course not. That's ridiculous." The 2 little girls relaxed a bit, but Alice could tell they weren't entirely convinced. At this point, neither was she. What was that? Who spoke? Was this what Blanche meant by being directed? She felt a bit unnerved, but continued to reassure them. "There's nothing lurking in the closets or hiding under beds. I've been in every room since I was born. Trust me, if there was anything scary, I'd have found it." "Did you grow up here?" asked Janie. "Well, no, my grandfather did, and all his parents and grandparents did." Janie regarded Alice directly, then, in a matter-of-fact manner, commented, "Well, I guess it might be all right. We didn't want to move here. We liked our old home better." Alice was stunned. How could that be possible? Not want to move here? Who wouldn't want to move here? Something came over Alice. She began telling them all the stories that Grandy had told her, how old the house was, and who had lived there. Janie listened intently and then looked down at her sister, who stared up with large, round, worried blue eyes. "But it's so big," said Janie. "It's kind of scary." "But that's what's so great about the place. It's huge. You're going to have a blast here. You can run around and no one will ever even hear you." Then Alice showed them the hidden rooms and the little cupboards where they could play hide and seek. "You can each have your own bedroom." She dragged them down the hall to the bedrooms and showed them how many there were. "See, this is the one my sister Delia uses. It has really pretty wallpaper." Janie surveyed the pink and blue floral pattern approvingly. Her own room. No more bunk beds and sharing with her younger sister. A hint of a smile flitted across her face, but Janie still wasn't entirely convinced. They were at the top of the stairs when Alice swung a leg over the banister. "And you can do this." Alice ran back up the stairs to help bring Becky down, but not before Janie had followed suit, screaming with laughter as she too slid down the rail to the bottom and looked up grinning. As the three of them walked into the kitchen, Josie looked at Alice suspiciously. "You weren't sliding down the banister, were you?" she whispered disapprovingly. Alice maintained an innocent air. The Harrisons, her mother, and Blanche were chatting over coffee at the kitchen table. "It's not haunted," announced Janie, still flushed from the banister ride. An expression of relief flashed across the mother's face. "No, of course it isn't, honey. I told you it wasn't." She looked gratefully at Alice and said, "Thank you, dear. That was very kind of you." She was so scared because all the kids at school told her there were ghosts, and of course that got her little sister all worried too. Mrs. Harrison picked up Becky as she said this and dandled her on her knee. The husband rose and took Josie's hand, thanking her for all her trouble. Then, as a group, they went to the back door and made their goodbyes. Blanche put a hand on her hip and with a hint of sarcasm said, "Well, aren't you a good girl? No ghost stories and no sliding down the banister." "Yeah, I guess I am. No ghost stories, at least," Alice replied with a smirk. "Could have scared the bejesus out of them." "Alice!" Josie turned a horrified look at her. "What kind of talk is that? To even imagine you'd want to frighten those two sweet little girls and teaching them to slide down the banister is irresponsible. What if one of them got hurt?" Blanche got Alice in a headlock and knuckle-rubbed her scalp. "You are a very bad girl." "Ow, that hurts," laughed Alice. They were cute kids. Blanche gave Alice a hug, happy to see that she was more herself. Josie smiled reluctantly, still taking a dim view on the banister sliding, and she was going to have to speak to Alice about language like bejesus. Where on earth did she learn that? Blanche, no doubt. They were back in the kitchen when Blanche's phone rang. "I've got to take this," she said, and went out to the back porch. Alice could hear part of the conversation as she walked out. "Yes?" Pause. "They did? Oh my God." Another pause. "Yes, okay, I'll be right down." Blanche returned to the kitchen and nodded to Josie. "There's something I have to do. I'll be back in a bit." Josie gave her sister a quick glance as she left. "Okay, we'll be fine. See you when you get back." Josie's face was deadpan. Once again, Alice sensed some kind of secret. Perhaps it had to do with a birthday. "What's going on?" She tried to sound nonchalant. "Oh, nothing," said Josie casually. "Alice, why don't you and I finish up the dishes and get the last of everything in boxes? I'll wash and you can dry." As Josie and Alice did the dishes, Josie started talking about her memories of growing up here in the house and how hard it had been to come to the decision to sell it. Alice realized she wasn't the only one feeling sad, and she put her arm around her mother and leaned her head on her shoulder. "My sweet daughter, I know how hard all this has been for you." Alice looked up at her. "I love you, Mum." Josie kissed her on the forehead. "And I love you too, sweetie." For the next couple of hours, Alice helped her mother out with packing up the kitchen, and as they worked, they chattered about this and that. Nothing too important, but Alice felt like somehow she was just getting to know her mother, and that felt strange, but in a good way. The place was finally getting organized. All the ornaments were downstairs, furniture was rearranged in the study, the bookcases were emptied. Alice noticed that the case with the stuffed animals was gone. No doubt piled with all the other collectibles. "I think that's about it for now, Alice. I'm beat. We'll finish up later. There's some lemonade in the fridge. Let's have a glass." "Sounds good, Mum. I was getting thirsty." Alice and her mother were sitting at the kitchen table, and Alice was about to get herself another glass of lemonade when Blanche strode in. Josie questioningly arched her brows, and Blanche gave a hint of a smile. "You need Alice for anything, Josie?" "Nope, I think we're pretty much done here. Delia said she'd help out with getting the U-Haul loaded." "Okay, Alice, why don't you hop in the car? I need you to give me a hand with something." "Sure, what is it?" "Oh, just something." Alice peeked over at her mother, who gave her a non-committal smile, but there was nothing to suggest anything was up. But Alice knew there was something. What could it be? Maybe her birthday? Alice followed Blanche to the car and hopped in. Blanche didn't say anything as they drove. "Okay, what's going on? You guys are up to something." Blanche was turning towards Lyautey, a small community on the coastline. She had this funny smirk on her face. "Will you just hang tight, kiddo? I'll give you a hint." Again they drove in silence until Alice couldn't stand it anymore. "So what's the hint?" she demanded. Blanche thought for a bit. "It has to do with summertime." "Going to the beach?" "Kind of." Alice was thinking, "Will I be surprised?" "I hope so." Alice was pretty sure what it was now. "A party?" Sort of, but not really." "Oh, come on, what is it?" "A surprise."